The silence in the dining room was almost as elaborate as the Thanksgiving decor I'd spent the week putting together. Cut crystals, imported porcelain, and silverware reflected the soft light of the candle holders. 20 years of building the Blackwood Empire alongside Andrew had taught me that appearances matter. And that night, my calm look became my most powerful weapon. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like for more stories like this. Family, I have an important announcement, Andrew said, holding Amber's hand, the marketing director for our Asian expansion. She looked radiant in her emerald green dress, her 4-month baby bump subtly visible. Amber's expecting a boy. We're having a baby. I raised my champagne glass with a practiced smile. What wonderful news. My reaction took everyone at the table by surprise. My twin daughters, Sophia and Emma, exchanged incredulous looks. Elizabeth, my mother-in-law, choked on her wine. Nathan, Andrew's younger brother, stared at his plate as if it held the secrets of the universe. Diana, you don't seem surprised, Elizabeth observed, breaking the awkward silence. Because I'm not, I calmly replied as I set my glass on the table. Actually, I have my own announcements for tonight. But first, let's enjoy this magnificent meal. While he was busy supervising expansions in Southeast Asia, I was digging into corporate files, financial reports, and original legal documents. I uncovered shell companies in Hong Kong and Singapore, suspicious transactions, and most importantly, the original documents of the Blackwood Hospitality Group. Andrew's father had been smarter than his son would ever be. As a wedding gift, he had given me 60% of the company's Class B shares, information Andrew never bothered to check, assuming that everything we built was automatically his. In the mansion's library, wearing cotton gloves, I spread the yellowed documents on the table. I called Robert Campbell, the retired lawyer who had drafted the original contracts. I always knew this day would come, Diana, Robert said on the phone. Henry Morgan knew exactly what he was doing when he put the future of Blackwood in your hands, not Andrew's. While dessert was served, pumpkin pie with vanilla cream, I began to lay out what I had discovered. Andrew, do you remember that resort in Bali that saved the company during the recession? Funny how that happened right after my spa trip to Indonesia. Andrew frowned. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm saying that while you were busy with that model from the advertising campaign in Milan, I was negotiating with Indonesian investors, just like I was the one who developed the sustainability concept that won international awards credited to you. I grabbed my tablet and projected documents on the opposite wall. I also uncovered some interesting transactions. Look at these transfers to companies in Singapore that, curiously, bought that new yacht you claimed was a corporate investment, and the girls watched intently. With degrees in business and law, they understood everything perfectly. Mom, Emma whispered, this is corporate embezzlement. Exactly, I replied. And there's more. That's enough. I'm not going to let you turn our family dinner into some kind of courtroom. You brought your pregnant lover to our Thanksgiving dinner, not realizing I had already executed the most devastating corporate coup in history, turning the all-powerful CEO into nothing more than a decorative figure in his own company, I said flatly. I think social conventions have long been abandoned. Nathan, finally finding his voice, interjected, Andrew, you always said you developed the strategy for expanding into Asia, but I clearly remember Diana working on those projects while you were on golf trips. Andrew pointed at Nathan. Mind your own business. As the Vice President of International Operations, I continued, I must tell everyone that our Japanese partners always preferred negotiating with me. In fact, the Tokyo contract has a specific clause requiring my continued presence in management. Elizabeth looked at her son in disappointment. Andrew, is what Diana is saying true? Mom, don't believe her. I built this company from scratch after Dad died. We built it, I corrected. And what about your father? The doorbell rang exactly at 9 p.m. The butler returned with Robert Campbell, who entered leaning on an elegant cane and carrying an old leather folder. Robert? Andrew said, genuinely surprised. What are you doing here? Mr. Campbell for you, Andrew, Robert replied. Diana requested my presence to clarify some details about the original structure of the Blackwood Hospitality Group. You're retired? Protested Andrew. From active practice, yes. But as the executor of your father's will and the drafter of the founding documents, My memory and knowledge remain intact. Robert pulled documents from the folder and distributed them to everyone at the table. These are the original company documents, showing the share structure established by the late Henry Morgan. As you can see on page 3, paragraph 2, Diana received 60% of the Class B shares as a wedding gift, giving her effective control of the company. I watched understanding spread across Andrew's face like a wave. First denial, then confusion, and finally uncontrollable panic that he tried to hide by adjusting his silk tie. "This is absurd," he protested, snatching the documents from Robert Campbell. "There has to be a mistake. My father would never do that." Robert adjusted his glasses calmly. "Your father, Henry Morgan, was an extraordinarily sharp man. He saw in you, Diana, qualities that you, unfortunately, ignored for 2 decades. Amber, visibly uncomfortable, placed her hand on her belly. "Michael, what is happening?" "Andrew," I corrected gently. "Your name is Andrew Morgan. I believe it is important to use the correct names, especially when someone is expecting a child." Sophia, always the more analytical of the twins, was already scrutinizing the documents with the meticulous look she got from me. "These Class B shares give majority control over strategic decisions, approval of senior executives, and a veto on any transaction over $10 million. She looked at her father, then at me. "Mom legally has controlled Blackwood from the beginning." "It's a forgery," Andrew insisted, though his voice betrayed uncertainty. "Diana is trying to steal what I built." "It's interesting that you use the word steal," I replied, keeping my tone calm as I opened a new folder. "I prefer the term reclaim, like these interior design patents for the boutique hotels that won international awards." I slid the documents across the table. "Notice that the original records are in my name, even though the corporate publications credit them to you. Or these sustainability concepts that revolutionized our supplier chain and saved 30% in operational costs." Elizabeth, who had remained silent for most of the confrontation, now looked at her son with an expression mixing disappointment and understanding. "Andrew always had a talent for presentations, but Diana, you were always the strategist. Henry told me that on your wedding day." Nathan nodded. "I remember Dad saying that you were the best insurance policy he could get for the future of the company." Robert placed another document on the table. "This is the transcript of the board meeting where Henry explained his decision to the original directors. He said, and I quote, 'My son has charisma and drive, but Diana has vision and discipline. Together they will be unbeatable, but if anything goes wrong, she will ensure that the Blackwood legacy survives." The room fell silent as the late patriarch's words hung in the air. Andrew looked like he had aged 10 years in minutes. "Why now?" he finally asked, his voice almost a whisper. "Why not before?" "Because until 3 months ago, I believed we were building something together, despite your occasional infidelities. I thought our marriage, however imperfect, was still a partnership. But bringing a pregnant mistress into our home while siphoning company funds to finance your lifestyle—" I paused, letting my words sink in. "That crosses a line that can't be undone." And the slide showed a new corporate organizational chart. Andrew Morgan was listed as non-executive chairman, and I was listed as CEO and chairman of the board. "You will continue as the public face of the company for clients and strategic partners. You'll keep your office and your assistant, attend important events, and participate in negotiations where your, shall we say, charisma is useful. You will receive a substantial annual salary and performance bonuses." I advanced to the next slide. "However, all strategic decisions, financial approvals, and operational oversight will be transferred to me and to the new executive team I'm going to assemble. The girls will join the corporate leadership program after graduation if they wish," I continued, looking at my daughters who nodded discreetly. "This is a coup," Andrew protested, though his tone no longer held the initial conviction. "No, it's a course correction, one that should have happened a long time ago." I turned to Amber, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. "And as for you, Amber—" She shrank slightly, protecting her belly. "I'm not a movie villain, dear. I'm not going to punish you for getting involved with my husband, although I do question your professional judgment in starting a relationship with your direct superior." I advanced to another slide. You will be transferred to our Singapore office as Regional Marketing Director for Southeast Asia, a substantial promotion. You will receive a corporate apartment and all the associated perks of the position. Amber blinked several times, clearly trying to process what she was hearing. And as for the child, I continued, I will set up a substantial educational fund that only the minor can access once they reach adulthood. Andrew will be allowed to visit Singapore regularly to maintain a relationship with his child, at the company's expense, as long as it does not interfere with corporate operations. Robert Campbell nodded approvingly. A very balanced approach, Diana. Elizabeth stood up and, to my surprise, came over to my side of the table. Henry would have approved. This preserves the Blackwood legacy while addressing the personal complications involved. Andrew looked stunned. You are all against me? Even you, Mom? Elizabeth placed her hand on his shoulder. I'm not against you, Andrew. I favor the company your father built, which you nearly destroyed with your arrogance. Diana is offering an exit that preserves your dignity and financial future. I suggest you consider it carefully. For several minutes, Andrew remained silent, staring at the documents spread out on the table, the organizational chart projected on the wall, and the faces of his family. Finally, he asked in a soft voice, And if I refuse? And if I challenge this legally? Robert Campbell sighed. Then you lose. The documents are indisputable. Diana could simply fire you today, block all your corporate access, and launch a full audit of your personal financial transactions over the past 5 years. Considering what we've already discovered, that would likely lead to criminal charges. I slid one final document across the table. Or you can sign this letter accepting the new terms, and tomorrow we move forward. Andrew looked at Amber, then at his daughters, his mother, and finally at me. You planned all of this with surgical precision, didn't you? Even this Thanksgiving dinner. I allowed myself a small smile. I learned from the best, Andrew. I spent 20 years watching you take credit for everyone else's work and manipulating situations for your own benefit. The difference is, I used those lessons to preserve something far bigger than my ego. The dining room clock struck 10 with a soft chime that punctuated our conversation. I turned back to my laptop and opened a new file. One more thing you need to know, I said as I typed briefly. Today at 4 p.m. New York time, I formally registered my status as the controlling shareholder of the Blackwood Hospitality Group with the SEC, on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and on the London Stock Exchange. The news will be published tomorrow in the major financial newspapers. I projected the front pages of the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the South China Morning Post on the wall, each prepared for the next day's edition, with headlines about the surprising leadership shakeup at hotel giant Blackwood. How did you pull that off? Andrew asked, his voice now a defeated whisper. Simple. I presented the legal documents that Robert certified and which prove my shareholding position. The exchanges only recognized a truth that has always been in the records. Emma, who was studying corporate law, interjected. This disclosure makes everything irrevocable, doesn't it? Any attempt to challenge now would just seem like a petty family squabble that might hurt the company's stock. Exactly, I confirmed. The market already reacted positively after the Asian session closed. Analysts are predicting that the share price will rise with promises of more transparent governance. Nathan checked his phone. She's right. Blackwood's shares have already jumped 7% in Hong Kong. Andrew closed his eyes, finally understanding the full extent of the situation. There was no way out, no way to reverse what was happening. His expression wavered between anger, defeat, and finally a kind of reluctant surrender. Amber, who had remained silent for a long time, finally spoke. What happens now? Tonight? I closed my laptop gently. Well, you two obviously won't be staying at the mansion. I booked the presidential suite at Blackwood Central Park for you tonight. The company driver is waiting to take you. Starting tomorrow, Andrew, you can use your downtown apartment. Elizabeth stood, exhausted. I think tonight has been dramatic enough. Diana, would you mind if I stayed in the guest room? I don't feel like driving home right now. Of course, Elizabeth. You will always be welcome here. Andrew hesitated, then took the pen I offered and signed the transition agreement. It was done. As the couple left, Nathan quietly approached me. How long have you been planning this? The final version? 3 months. But I've been building contingencies since I noticed the first signs of Andrew's erratic behavior, about 5 years ago. Sophia and Emma came over, each placing a hand on my shoulder. That was intense, Mom, said Sophia, but impressive. Are you disappointed in me? I asked, letting a moment of vulnerability slip through my carefully maintained facade. Emma shook her head. Disappointed? We're inspired. Dad built an image, but you built a legacy. Robert Campbell raised his brandy glass in a silent toast from across the room. The shares were rising. The transition was underway. The empire wasn't going to collapse. It was being rebuilt, stronger and more transparent. And I, Diana Morgan, would finally step out of the shadows to lead the company I helped build from the start. This time I answered, Diana Morgan, Mrs. Morgan, this is Amber Collins. Her voice trembled slightly. Can I speak with you before I leave for Singapore? I really want to talk in person. I considered the request for a moment. Sure. I'll be at Blackwood's main office at 2. We can talk in the executive conference room. At exactly 2, Amber entered the room. Without the tension of the family showdown, I could see her clearly. Young, obviously talented, with that kind of determination I recognized in myself 20 years ago. Only, she had chosen a different path, and a much more complicated one. Thank you for seeing me, she began, sitting across from me. Andrew, your husband doesn't know I'm here. Ex-husband soon, I gently corrected. The divorce papers were sent this morning. But I assume you didn't come to discuss my marriage. Amber placed her hands protectively on her belly. I came to understand exactly what you expect of me. In Singapore at Blackwood, as the mother of your ex-husband's child. I opened a folder and slid a document toward her. This is your new contract as Regional Marketing Director for Southeast Asia. The salary is competitive and the responsibilities substantial. It's not charity. I reviewed your work on the Asian expansion. You have genuine talent. Amber examined the terms, surprise clear in her eyes. This is very generous. It's not generosity, it's pragmatism. Wasting your talent would be counterproductive for the company. I handed her another document. This is the trust fund for your child. It is irrevocable, protected from any financial instability that Andrew might face in the future. She looked at me, clearly confused. Why are you doing this? You could have simply fired me and kicked us both out. I got up and walked over to the window with a panoramic view of Manhattan. The Blackwood logo glowed on our flagship hotel just a few blocks away. When I found out about you two, my first instinct was to destroy everything. Andrew, you, even parts of the company he valued. I turned to face her. But that would have meant letting his betrayal dictate my actions. And if there's one thing I learned in 20 years of business, it's that decisions made out of revenge never pay off in the long run. Amber nodded slowly. That still doesn't explain your understanding with me. I have 2 daughters, Amber. I can imagine the pressures you've faced and the promises Andrew made. He has a special talent for making people believe he can offer them the world. I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. My conflict is with Andrew, not with you or with an innocent child. Besides, that boy will be a half-brother to my daughters. Family is complicated, but still family. Tears began to form in Amber's eyes. I never imagined I would be the other woman. When I started at Blackwood, I admired you. Every young woman in the company did. Your competence, your elegance. And yet, you slept with my husband. I observed without bitterness. She wiped away a tear. You need to get to know Amber properly. She will be part of your life in a way. My daughters exchanged a look before approaching cautiously. So, began Sophia with her usual straightforwardness, when is our half-brother due? In May, Amber answered, clearly relieved by the neutral tone. Let's make sure he gets to know his sisters, I affirmed. No matter what mistakes Andrew has made, every child deserves to know their family. Emma, always the more empathetic of the twins, asked, Have you chosen a name yet? Amber's face brightened slightly. Henry. I want to call him Henry. The name of the Morgan patriarch, a thoughtful choice that none of us missed. Henry is a good name, I agreed, surprised by how sincere I sounded. After Amber left, the girls looked at me with curiosity. Are you really okay with all this? Emma asked. I sighed deeply. I'm not okay. I'm handling this situation in the most dignified and productive way possible. There's a difference. Sophia, still as analytical as ever, said, You could have destroyed Dad completely, exposed everything. Why be so discreet? Because Blackwood is bigger than Andrew's shortcomings or my personal pain. It's the legacy we'll leave for both of you, and now for little Henry as well. The girls nodded, their expressions showing a new understanding of what it takes to truly lead. That night, alone in my room, I allowed myself a few moments of sadness over the marriage that had ended. Not for the illusions or the betrayals, but for the genuine dreams we once shared. Then, I wiped away my tears and went back to reviewing the financial reports I needed for my first official meeting as CEO. Employees who once greeted me with polite smiles now straightened up in respect. The news of the leadership change had spread through every level of the company like wildfire. Good morning, Ms. Morgan, said the general manager, hurrying beside me. The representatives from the Dubai Investment Group arrived early. They're in the VIP room as requested. Thank you, Charles. How are they feeling? Initially apprehensive about the leadership change, but once they saw the new Q4 numbers, I noticed their enthusiasm grow. I smiled. Excellent. And what about the new sustainability concept for the Gulf project? Your revisions have been implemented. They reduced the construction budget by 15% while increasing energy efficiency. They're very impressed. I stopped at the conference room doors. Outside, Robert Campbell waited with Nathan. Diana, Robert greeted warmly. The new contracts are ready. They are structured exactly as you specified. Total transparency, clear accountability, and binding environmental protections. And Andrew? I asked Nathan. He arrived 10 minutes ago. He's following the agreed script. Professional, charismatic, but clearly subordinate to you in all strategic decisions. I took a deep breath. Let's go then. When we entered, Andrew was in the middle of telling a charming story that made the Arab investors laugh. When he saw me, he interrupted politely and gestured toward me. Gentlemen, I have the pleasure of introducing Diana Morgan, our CEO and chairman of the board, the true visionary behind Blackwood's evolution. His tone was perfectly measured, respectful but not forced. The 3 weeks of intensive public relations training had clearly paid off. For the next 2 hours, we carried out a flawlessly choreographed presentation. Andrew opened with charm and flair, I followed with substance and strategy, and Nathan provided precise operational details. Like a well-rehearsed orchestra, each one of us played our part. Sheikh Abdullah, head of the investment group, observed our dynamic with interest. Ms. Morgan, he commented during one of the breaks, I must admit I was initially worried about the leadership restructuring, but now I see that Blackwood is in more capable hands than ever. Thank you, Sheikh Abdullah. The transition was carefully planned to ensure stability and continuous growth. Diplomatic talk flowed easily, much better than the chaotic truth about betrayal and corporate revenge. After the successful meeting, Andrew approached me while the others were leaving. It was the first time we were somewhat alone since that Thanksgiving dinner. You did an impressive job today, he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard before. I always do. He nodded, acknowledging the truth. Amber arrived safely in Singapore. The apartment is very nice. Thank you for that. As I said, I'm not punishing a pregnant woman for her mistakes. I gathered my documents, keeping my hands occupied to ease the awkwardness of the moment. Diana, he hesitated. After everything, do you really think we could ever— No, I interrupted softly. What we had is over. But we can still be effective business partners and decent co-parents for our daughters and Henry. For the first time, I saw genuine emotion in his eyes. Will you really treat my child with Amber as part of the family? A child doesn't choose their circumstances, Andrew. Henry is a Morgan, no matter how he came into this world. He seemed like he wanted to say more, but he only nodded and left. That night, I gathered the executive team on the hotel terrace for a small cocktail to celebrate the Dubai deal. Elizabeth joined me, elegant as always, and now clearly proud of my leadership. Cheers, Nathan proposed, raising his glass, to the new era of Blackwood Hospitality Group. As the glasses clinked, I watched the sunset over Manhattan. The Blackwood logo shone on our buildings, a symbol of everything we built. Robert Campbell came over, leaning on his cane. "Henry would be proud," he said softly. "You didn't just save his legacy, you transformed it into something even better." "I didn't destroy his empire, if that's what you mean." "Exactly. Revenge would have meant burning everything to the ground. True strength is in rebuilding something stronger on the same foundations." Sophia and Emma joined us. They were now officially part of the leadership program. They had postponed their last semester at Princeton to learn the family business firsthand from me. "So, CEO Morgan," Sophia teased, "what are your plans for the next 20 years? I looked at my daughters, at the team of talented people around me, and at the empire I finally had the chance to shape openly. "To build something that lasts," I replied simply. "Something that goes beyond our personal stories and stands as a testament to what we can achieve when we lead with integrity." Unsubscribe to the channel and leave a like for more stories like this. In the distance, the lights of New York sparkled against the night sky, reflecting in the windows of Blackwood hotels. It wasn't the ending I had imagined when I married Andrew Morgan 20 years ago, but it was a new beginning, one that I had forged through pain, strategy, and a firm determination to turn betrayal into triumph. The empire hadn't crumbled. It had simply changed hands, to hands that had secretly supported it all along.